like a mischievous spell. Eve, with innocence in her eyes, replied, "We may eat the fruit of the trees." But God said, "You shall not eat it, nor shall you touch it, lest you die." The serpent, a master of deception, slyly whispered, "You won't die." God knows that when you eat it, your eyes will open, and you'll be like God, knowing good and evil. Fascinated by the idea of wisdom and knowledge, Eve gazed at the tree. Its fruit looked delicious, pleasing to the eyes, and desirable for gaining wisdom. The serpent's words echoed in her mind, and she plucked the fruit, taking a bite. She then offered it to Adam, and he took a bite. Suddenly, their eyes were open, and they realized they were naked. Quickly, they sewed fig leaves together to cover themselves, for they felt exposed in the newfound awareness of good and evil. In the cool of the day, they heard the sound of the Lord God walking in the garden. Fearful and ashamed, Adam and Eve hid among the trees. God called, "Where are you?" Adam admitted, "I heard your voice, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid." God, in his infinite wisdom, questioned Adam, "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the forbidden tree?" Adam, unable to bear the weight of his choice, pointed to Eve. "The woman you gave me, she gave me the fruit, and I ate." God turned to Eve, who explained, "The serpent deceived me, and I ate." The consequences unfolded like pages of a story. God spoke to the serpent, cursing it and foretelling a future conflict. To the woman, God spoke of increased sorrow and pain in childbirth, and the man's dominion over her. To Adam, God spoke of the ground being cursed, bringing forth thorns and thistles, and the toil of labor for sustenance. Yet, even in the face of consequences, God showed mercy. He made tunics of skin for Adam and Eve, clothing them with his grace. As Adam named his wife Eve, the mother of all living, they faced the realities of their choices. The divine Genesis adventure took an unexpected turn, revealing the delicate balance between free will and the consequences of decisions. In the end, God, in his infinite love, placed cherubim at the gates of the garden, guarding the way to the tree of life. The adventures of Adam and Eve continue beyond the garden, a journey of redemption and grace, reminding all that even in our choices, God's love and mercy prevail. And so, the divine narrative unfolded, teaching the young and old alike the profound lessons of choice, consequence, and the enduring grace of a loving Creator. The end.
Once upon a time, in a world where people had forgotten to be kind, there lived a man named Noah who worshipped God. Noah was a man of faith, but everyone else around him disobeyed and hated God. One day, something shocking happened. God spoke to Noah, revealing a plan to destroy the wicked world, sparing only Noah's family. God instructed Noah to build a wooden ark, a boat big enough for his family and many animals. Noah got to work, following God's exact instructions. Probably, people mocked Noah as he explained why he was building an ark. But Noah kept building, also spreading the word about God, though nobody listened. As the ark neared completion, God brought animals of all kinds, 7 of some species, 2 of others. Birds and beasts, tiny and tall, all made their way to the ark. Perhaps people shouted insults at Noah, but they did not stop sinning against God. They did not ask to enter the ark. Finally, all the animals and birds were aboard. God invited Noah and his family into the ark. As they entered, God shut the door. Then the rain came, a great downpour soaking the earth for 40 days and nights. Floodwaters covered towns and villages. The ark floated on top of the rising waters, sheltering Noah from the flood. After 5 months, a drying wind sent by God brought the ark to rest on the mountains of Ararat. Noah and his family waited inside as the water lowered. Noah sent a raven and a dove out. The dove returned with an olive leaf, a sign that the earth was slowly drying. God told Noah it was time to leave the ark. Together, Noah and his family unloaded the animals. Noah, filled with gratitude, built an altar and worshipped God who had saved him and his family from the awful flood. God gave Noah a wonderful promise. Never again would he send a flood to judge human sin. As a great reminder of this promise, God gifted the world with a rainbow, a beautiful sign of his covenant. And so, Noah and his family found new beginnings after the flood. In time, his descendants repeopled the whole earth, and all nations came from Noah and his children.
God's promise to Abraham. Long ago, after a big flood washed the earth clean, only Noah and his family were safe on a big boat with lots of animals. When the water went away, people started to build things again. They had a big idea. Let's build a tall tower that touches the sky, right up to the stars. They wanted to stay together and be friends forever. But something magical happened. Suddenly, everyone started speaking in different languages. It was so confusing because nobody could understand each other anymore. So, the people split up, finding new places to live with others who spoke the same language. The big city they left behind was called Babel, which means a big mix-up. Then, in a place called Ur, God talked to a man named Abram. God said, "Abram, go on an adventure to a special land I'll show you." Abram, his wife Sarai, and his nephew Lot packed up and went to a beautiful land called Canaan. Canaan was filled with green fields and clear blue skies. Abram and Lot had so many sheep and cows. The land they were living on didn't have enough grass and water for all the animals. So, the workers of Abraham and Lot started arguing over the best spots for their animals to eat and drink. Abram wanted everyone to be happy and not fight. He told Lot, "Let's not argue. You choose any part of the land you like, and I'll go the other way." That way, there was enough room for all their animals. Lot looked around and saw a really nice area with lots of water and green grass near the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. It looked like the best spot for his animals, so he chose to move there. Abraham stayed in the land of Canaan, where God asked him to stay. Even though Abraham and Lot had to live apart to stop the arguing, Abraham made sure they did it in a kind and peaceful way, showing he was a really good uncle and a wise man. God saw Abram's kind heart and told him, "This whole big, beautiful land will belong to you and your children and their children after them, forever." But Abram and Sarai were very old and didn't have any children. They wondered, how will God's promise come true? One day, 3 special visitors brought amazing news. "Sarai, you're going to have a baby." Sarai laughed because she thought she was too old for that. God also changed their names to Abraham and Sarah to show they were going to start a big family. Then, God said he had to fix the 2 naughty cities near where Lot lived. Abraham was worried for Lot. Lot listened to the angels and escaped with his daughters. But Lot's wife looked back and turned into a salt statue. Then, the most wonderful thing happened. Even though they were very old, Abraham and Sarah had a baby boy named Isaac. Isaac, which means laughter. They were so happy and amazed at God's miracle. Abraham knew then that God always keeps his promises, like giving him a big family and a beautiful land to live in. And that's the story of how Abraham and Sarah learned to trust in God's promises, no matter how impossible they seemed. The end.
Once upon a starry night, in a land filled with whispers of the past and promises for the future, Abraham, a man known for his kindness and faith, received a very tough test from God. God asked him, to do something unimaginable, to offer his dearest son Isaac as a special gift back to God. This was to see if Abraham trusted God above all else, even more than he loved his precious son. Abraham's heart felt heavy, like a stone sinking in a deep, deep ocean. But deep inside, he knew he had to trust God, no matter how hard it seemed. So, with a brave yet heavy heart, he prepared for the journey. As the first light of dawn painted the sky in soft hues of pink and orange, Abraham, Isaac, and their 2 faithful servants set off on a journey filled with uncertainty. Abraham carried the fire and a knife, while Isaac, unaware of what was to come, carried the wood for the fire. As they neared the mountain that God had told them about, Abraham asked his servants to wait for them at the foot of the mountain. "Isaac and I will go up to worship, and then we'll come back to you," he said with a gentle smile. Climbing the mountain, Isaac, with a curious twinkle in his eye, asked, "Father, we have the wood and the fire, but where is the lamb for the offering?" Abraham, with a heart full of hope, replied, "My son, God will take care of it. He will provide the lamb for the offering." Reaching the top, Abraham built an altar, the most difficult one he ever had to make. He arranged the wood, and with a heart weighed down by a sea of emotions, he gently placed Isaac on the altar, ready to show God that he trusted him completely. But just as Abraham raised the knife, a voice as powerful as thunder, but as gentle as a whisper, stopped him. "Stop, Abraham." It was an angel sent by God. The angel said, "You've shown that you trust God above all by being willing to give up your only son." Then Abraham saw a ram caught in some nearby bushes. With a heart bursting with relief and gratitude, he untied Isaac, and together they offered the ram to God. It was a moment filled with so much joy and thankfulness. Abraham and Isaac returned home, their bond stronger than ever, their hearts filled with the knowledge that when you trust in God, He always provides, just in the right way and at the right time. And so, under the same stars that had witnessed their journey, Abraham and Isaac found comfort in knowing that no matter what, God's love and care would always guide them, just like it guides us all. The end. The adventure of Abraham and Isaac. A new beginning. Once upon a time, after a big adventure on a mountain, Abraham and his son Isaac were on their way back home. Then, while the stars twinkled like tiny smiles above them, a kind angel came with a message that made their hearts dance. "Abraham," the angel said, "your family will be as numerous as the stars. And guess what? They're going to bring happiness to the whole wide world." It was like a secret promise about a hero who had come from their family tree, someone very special named Jesus. But when they got back home, they found themselves in a very quiet house. Sarah, the laughter and love of their home, had gone on a journey to the stars. Abraham and Isaac felt very sad, missing her warm hugs and bright smile. Abraham had an idea to bring some joy back into their home. He called his most trusted friend, a wise old servant, and gave him a very important mission. "It's time for Isaac to find a companion, someone to share stories and dreams with," Abraham said. "Please find a kind lady from our family for Isaac." The servant set off on his camels, hoping for a little help from the stars. As he reached a faraway land, he made a wish. "Let the right lady be the one who offers water to my thirsty camels." It wasn't just any wish. It was a special kind of hope that that only the kindest hearts could fulfill. Like a scene from a beautiful story, along came Rebecca with a smile as bright as the dawn. She saw the camels, tired and thirsty, and offered them cool, refreshing water. The servant's eyes sparkled with joy. This must be the one, he thought. She was kind, just like the wish. Rebecca, brave and full of adventure, said yes to a new journey. She traveled across the deserts and mountains to meet Isaac. When Isaac saw her, it was like spring had come to his heart, filling it with flowers and sunshine. Rebecca's kindness and laughter brought new stories and dreams to their home. Isaac and Rebecca, hand in hand, started a wonderful adventure together, full of love and promise. And so, the story of Abraham, Isaac, and now Rebecca reminds us all. After every big adventure, after every sad goodbye, there's always a new beginning, a chance for love and joy to grow again, just like the stars that twinkle in the night sky. The end. Jacob and Esau, a story of brothers and forgiveness. Once upon a time, in a land of ancient wonders, Isaac and Rebekah were blessed with not one, but 2 sons at the same time. These were no ordinary boys. They were twins named Jacob and Esau. Even before they were born, they were already showing their unique personalities, with Esau loving the thrill of the hunt, and Jacob preferring the quiet of home. Esau, the elder, was as rugged and wild as the forests he roamed, while Jacob, the younger, was thoughtful and clever, always with a plan up his sleeve. Their parents loved them dearly, but each had a favorite, which brewed a little competition between the brothers. One day, as Esau returned from his adventures, famished and weary, Jacob saw an opportunity. He offered Esau a simple meal in exchange for his birthright, the special status of the firstborn. Esau, thinking little of the future, agreed. This moment would change the course of their lives in ways they couldn't imagine. As the boys grew, so did their rivalry, especially when it came time for their father Isaac to bestow his special blessing. Rebekah, who adored Jacob, devised a plan to ensure her favorite son received this honor. With a bit of disguise and a daring heart, Jacob tricked his father and received the blessing meant for Esau. Realizing the deception, Esau was heartbroken and filled with anger. To protect Jacob from Esau's wrath, Rebekah sent him far away to her brother Laban's house, hoping that time would heal the rift between her sons. Jacob's journey was not easy. He worked tirelessly for Laban, enduring trickery and toil, all for the love of Rachel, Laban's daughter. Yet, through these trials, Jacob grew wiser and kinder, learning the value of honesty and hard work. Years passed, and God called Jacob to return home, but the thought of facing Esau filled Jacob with dread. What if Esau still harbored anger and sought revenge? Nevertheless, Jacob set out, hoping for forgiveness. As Jacob neared his homeland, he prepared for the worst. But to his surprise, Esau greeted him not with anger, but with open arms. The brothers embraced, their past grievances washed away by tears of joy. It was a moment of true reconciliation, proving that love can overcome the deepest divides. Together again, Jacob and Esau showed us that it's never too late to mend broken bonds, and that forgiveness is one of the greatest gifts we can offer. The end. Joseph's journey, from dreamer to dreamkeeper. In a land where families were as vast as the stars, Isaac's heart was full of joy as his son Jacob returned home. Even Esau, who once harbored anger, welcomed Jacob with open arms. But But not all was peaceful, for Jacob's sons felt a storm brewing in their hearts, troubled by their younger brother Joseph, who was clearly the apple of their father's eye. Joseph, with his bright, colorful coat, a gift from Jacob, was a dreamer. His dreams, however, sparked flames of jealousy among his brothers. In one dream, Joseph saw his own sheaf of grain standing tall, while his brother's sheaves bowed down to it. In another, the sun, moon, and even the stars bowed before him. These dreams whispered of a future where Joseph would rise above them all, even his parents and brothers. One day, Jacob sent Joseph to check on his brothers in the fields. As he approached, their jealousy turned to dark whispers of getting rid of the dreamer. Reuben, the eldest, suggested they put Joseph in a pit instead, secretly planning to save him later. But while Reuben was away, a caravan heading to Egypt appeared. Judah, another brother, proposed they sell Joseph instead of harming him directly. And so, for 20 pieces of silver, Joseph's fate was sealed, and he was taken far from his homeland, his heart heavy with sorrow and fear. The brothers deceived their father, presenting Joseph's colorful coat, now stained with goat's blood, letting Jacob believe his beloved son was gone forever. Jacob's grief was a deep well of sorrow, with no one able to console him. Meanwhile, in Egypt, Joseph found himself a slave in Potiphar's house. Despite his hardships, Joseph's diligence and trust in God shone brightly, earning him Potiphar's favor and the position of chief servant. But just as things seemed to be looking up, Joseph faced a new trial. Potiphar's wife, with dishonest intentions, falsely accused Joseph, leading to his unjust imprisonment. Even in the depths of a dungeon, Joseph's spirit remained unbroken. He understood that through all trials, honoring God was his true strength, a beacon of hope that illuminated even the darkest of places. The end. Joseph's journey from prison to palace. Once upon a time in a far-off land called Egypt, Joseph found himself in a dark prison, wrongly accused by Potiphar, his former master. But even in such a grim place, Joseph's kindness and helpful nature shone bright. The wardens saw something special in Joseph and trusted him to help organize prison life, making it a better place for everyone. One day, Joseph noticed 2 new prisoners looking particularly downcast. They were the king's baker and butler, troubled by dreams they couldn't understand. Joseph, with his unwavering faith, assured them, "God can reveal what your dreams mean. Tell me about them." To the butler, Joseph predicted a return to Pharaoh's favor in just 3 days and asked to be remembered. To the baker, however, Joseph had to deliver some unfortunate news. Just as Joseph had said, the butler was restored to his position, but he forgot about Joseph, leaving him in prison. Time passed until one day, Pharaoh himself was troubled by a mysterious dream. Remembering Joseph's gift, the butler finally spoke up, leading to Joseph's summoning. Standing before Pharaoh, Joseph humbly explained that the dream foretold 7 years of abundance, followed by 7 years of famine. He advised Pharaoh to store food during the good years to prepare for the tough times ahead. Impressed by Joseph's wisdom and his clear connection to God, Pharaoh declared, "You will take charge in Egypt, second only to me." And so, Joseph went from prison to palace, overseeing the land's preparations for the coming famine. As predicted, the years of plenty came and went, and famine spread across the land. Back in Joseph's homeland, his family was starving. Jacob sent his sons to Egypt to buy grain, not knowing that they would come face to face with their long-lost brother, now the lordly ruler of Egypt. Joseph recognized his brothers, but they didn't know him. Recalling his boyhood dreams, Joseph realized that this moment was part of a bigger plan. He tested his brothers, demanding they return with their youngest brother Benjamin to prove their honesty. When they returned, Joseph could no longer hide his true identity. Overcome with emotion, he revealed himself to his brothers, saying, "I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt." The brothers were speechless, fearing for what might come next. But Joseph comforted them, explaining that their actions had been part of a divine plan to save their family from famine. "God made me Lord in Egypt so I could save your lives," he told them. Soon after, Jacob and Joseph were joyfully reunited in Egypt, and the entire family was settled there, living in peace and plenty, thanks to Joseph's faith and God's guiding hand. The end.
The Adventure of Baby Moses, From the Nile to the Palace. In a time long ago, Egypt mourned the loss of a great leader, Joseph. He had saved the land from famine and was loved by all. But as years turned into centuries, a new pharaoh came to power, one who did not remember Joseph and his deeds. The Hebrews, Joseph's people, had grown in number and strength, which made the new pharaoh uneasy. Fearing they might become too powerful, he decided to make them slaves, forcing them to build great cities under harsh conditions. Despite the heavy work, the Hebrews continued to grow in numbers, which troubled Pharaoh even more. So he made a terrible order. All newborn Hebrew boys were to be thrown into the river Nile. One Hebrew family, desperate to save their baby boy, crafted a plan. They carefully placed him in a snug, watertight basket and set it afloat among the reeds of the Nile, trusting in a higher power to protect their child. As the basket bobbed gently in the water, the baby's sister watched from a distance, her heart filled with hope and fear. Then, something unexpected happened. Pharaoh's daughter came to the river to bathe and spotted the curious basket among the reeds. With a mix of surprise and compassion, she ordered her servant to bring the basket to her. Upon opening it, the sound of the baby's cry touched her heart. "It's a Hebrew child," she realized, but instead of sending him to a cruel fate, she chose kindness. "Poor little thing, you're so beautiful," she cooed, perhaps even playing with the baby as anyone would with a precious little one. Watching all this unfold, the baby's sister saw an opportunity. She bravely approached the princess and offered to find a Hebrew woman to nurse the child. The princess agreed, not knowing the girl would bring the baby's own mother. Rushing home, the sister called out to her mother, "Come quickly! Oh, hurry!" Without a moment to lose, they both hurried back to the riverbank. There, Pharaoh's daughter entrusted the baby to his mother, saying, "Nurse him for me, and I will pay you." She named him Moses, which means drawn from the water. In a twist of fate, baby Moses was back in his parents' arms, where they taught him to love God and cherish his heritage. But soon, he would grow up in the palace as the son of Pharaoh's daughter, destined for greatness, part of a divine plan far beyond what anyone could imagine. The end.
Moses, from prince to leader. Long ago in Egypt, Moses, a prince raised in Pharaoh's palace, faced a moment that would change his life. Despite his royal upbringing, Moses never forgot he was a Hebrew at heart. One day, he saw an Egyptian mistreating a Hebrew slave. Feeling a rush of protectiveness, Moses looked around and, seeing no one, stepped in to save the slave but ended up making a grave mistake. The very next day, Moses tried to stop a fight between two Hebrews, only to realize his secret was out. The news even reached Pharaoh, forcing Moses to flee to a faraway land called Midian for safety. In Midian, Moses found himself by a well where he helped the 7 daughters of Reuel, a priest, fend off some rude shepherds. Impressed by Moses' bravery, Reuel invited him home, leading to Moses marrying Reuel's daughter and starting a new life as a shepherd. Meanwhile, back in Egypt, the Hebrews suffered greatly under a new Pharaoh. Their cries for help reached the heavens, and God was listening. 40 years had passed since Moses left Egypt. While tending his flock, Moses saw something incredible: a bush engulfed in flames that didn't seem to burn up. Curious, Moses went closer, only to hear God's voice calling him by name. God told Moses to take off his sandals, for he was standing on holy ground. God had a mission for Moses to lead the Hebrews out of Egypt and free them from slavery. Moses was scared and unsure, especially about speaking to Pharaoh. But God showed Moses miraculous signs, turning his staff into a serpent and then back again, and even curing his hand from leprosy to prove his power. Still hesitant, Moses worried about his speaking abilities. God, growing impatient with Moses' doubts, promised Aaron, Moses' brother, would help speak for him. Moses bid farewell to Jethro and set off to Egypt with his family. In the mountains, Aaron met Moses, and together they shared God's plan with the Hebrew leaders, who were amazed by the signs and worshipped God, filled with hope. Moses and Aaron then bravely approached Pharaoh, delivering God's message, "Let my people go." But Pharaoh's heart was hard. He refused to listen. God was ready to show his great power to change Pharaoh's mind, marking the beginning of an epic journey for Moses, from a prince in Egypt to a shepherd in Midian, and finally, a leader of his people. The end. Moses, from prince to leader. Long ago in Egypt, Moses, a prince raised in Pharaoh's palace, faced a moment that would change his life. Despite his royal upbringing, Moses never forgot he was a Hebrew at heart. One day, he saw an Egyptian mistreating a Hebrew slave. Feeling a rush of protectiveness, Moses looked around and, seeing no one, stepped in to save the slave but ended up making a grave mistake. The very next day, Moses tried to stop a fight between 2 Hebrews, only to realize his secret was out. The news even reached Pharaoh, forcing Moses to flee to a faraway land called Midian for safety. In Midian, Moses found himself by a well where he helped the 7 daughters of Reuel, a priest, fend off some rude shepherds. Impressed by Moses' bravery, Reuel invited him home, leading to Moses marrying Reuel's daughter and starting a new life as a shepherd. Meanwhile, back in Egypt, the Hebrews suffered greatly under a new Pharaoh. Their cries for help reached the heavens, and God was listening. 40 years had passed since Moses left Egypt. While tending his flock, Moses saw something incredible: a bush engulfed in flames that didn't seem to burn up. Curious, Moses went closer, only to hear God's voice calling him by name. God told Moses to take off his sandals, for he was standing on holy ground. God had a mission for Moses to lead the Hebrews out of Egypt and free them from slavery. Moses was scared and unsure, especially about speaking to Pharaoh. But God showed Moses miraculous signs, turning his staff into a serpent and then back again, and even curing his hand from leprosy to prove his power. Still hesitant, Moses worried about his speaking abilities. God, growing impatient with Moses' doubts, promised Aaron, Moses' brother, would help speak for him. Moses bid farewell to Jethro and set off to Egypt with his family. In the mountains, Aaron met Moses, and together they shared God's plan with the Hebrew leaders, who were amazed by the signs and worshipped God, filled with hope. Moses and Aaron then bravely approached Pharaoh, delivering God's message, "Let my people go." But Pharaoh's heart was hard. He refused to listen. God was ready to show his great power to change Pharaoh's mind, marking the beginning of an epic journey for Moses, from a prince in Egypt to a shepherd in Midian, and finally, a leader of his people. The end.
The Great Escape, Moses and the Miraculous Exodus. In the heart of ancient Egypt, where the Nile flows like a lifeline, through the desert a story unfolded that would be told for generations. Pharaoh, the mighty ruler of Egypt, was filled with anger. God had commanded him through Moses to free the Israelite slaves, but Pharaoh's heart was as hard as stone. Work them harder, Pharaoh decreed, increasing the Israelites' burden. He ordered that they find their own straw for brickmaking, yet produce the same number of bricks. The task was impossible, and the slave masters' whips cracked more fiercely. The Hebrews, downtrodden and despairing, blamed Moses and Aaron for their worsened plight. Moses, feeling the weight of their suffering, cried out to the Lord, "You have not rescued your people at all." But God replied with a promise of deliverance, sending Moses and Aaron back to confront Pharaoh. In Pharaoh's court, Aaron's rod transformed into a serpent, a sign from God. Pharaoh's magicians replicated the feat, but Aaron's serpent swallowed theirs. Yet Pharaoh's heart remained unyielding. The following morning, Moses and Aaron waited by the river for Pharaoh. With a divine command, Aaron turned the Nile's waters into blood, but Pharaoh's heart hardened further, refusing the Israelites' release. God then unleashed a series of plagues upon Egypt, each more terrifying than the last. Frogs invaded every crevice of the Egyptians' homes, but Pharaoh's promises to release the slaves were empty. Lice tormented both man and beast, and swarms of flies filled the air. Livestock perished, boils afflicted the Egyptians, and locusts devoured the land's greenery. Darkness enveloped Egypt for 3 days, yet Pharaoh's resolve did not falter. God's final, most grievous plague was to strike at midnight, claiming the firstborn of Egypt. The Israelites were spared, marking their doorposts with lamb's blood as a sign for the angel of death to pass over their homes. That night Egypt wailed as the firstborn were lost. Pharaoh, broken and defeated, urged Moses to take the Israelites and leave. With haste, the Israelites journeyed beyond Egypt's borders, marking the end of their 430 years of bondage. Guided by a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night, they embarked on a journey to freedom. But Pharaoh's resolve wavered once more. Gathering his army, he pursued the Israelites, trapping them between the cliffs and the sea. In this moment of despair, Moses assured the people, "The Lord shall fight for you." As Moses stretched out his hand over the waters, a great miracle occurred. God parted the Red Sea, providing a path of salvation for his people. The Israelites crossed safely, but as Pharaoh's army followed, the waters crashed down, swallowing the might of Egypt. On that day, Pharaoh learned the power of Israel's God, the Lord over all. The Israelites' journey from slavery to freedom